The Hall of Fame Gallery in Cooperstown, New York, the Hall of Greats, that was actually recently expanded to accommodate all the new plaques and players, although that run might be about to slow down quite a bit. Let's take a look at the newcomers to the ballot for 2013. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Sammy Sosa, Mike Piazza. They could all get the McGuire or Bagwell treatment from the writers. That's suspicion of performance-enhancing drugs. Beyond those four, you have Craig Biggio, Curt Schilling, Kenny Lofton. It could have been, you take steroids out of the equation, could have been the best Hall of Fame ballot ever. And coming up, Hall of Fame President Jeff Idelson will get the Hall stance on all of this and what the writers are actually doing. We're here on Clubhouse Confidential, joined by Joe Sheehan, Jay Jaffe, and Jon Heyman. The steroid question, fellas. Jon, let me start with you, because you do have a vote. Should your Hall of Fame vote be affected by suspicion of steroid use or actual use of performance-enhancing drugs?
Well, definitely by the actual use. Suspicion, I really don't think so. I think we want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. I understand it's not a court of law. The standard's going to be a little bit different. But if someone has been proven, at least to my satisfaction, to have taken steroids, now steroids is cheating, so I don't really want to put them in. Now, I will make some exceptions, and I'm really thinking hard about guys like Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds and Alex Rodriguez when they get the chance. In my mind, I do believe that they did take steroids, but I think I will make the judgment, at least the time isn't here yet, but I think I will make the judgment they would have been Hall of Famers regardless. The thing with, I have McGuire and Palmeiro, I do think they took steroids. I think they were proven to take steroids. One failed a test. The other one took the fifth when he had a chance to come out and said he didn't take steroids. To me, I think the steroids probably put them over the top. I think they had Hall of Fame careers, but just by a little and just because of the steroids.
Well, it sounds like that's two separate arguments. One is they cheated and you're knocking them out on the clause that says, character and integrity of the game. The other one is, well, without steroids, they wouldn't have been Hall of Fame. It's two separate arguments, and I think both of them, you hear this a lot, both those cases get made. For me, I think you judge players against their time, for one, so I think you have to judge all these players in the context of their era. The second thing is this. There are an awful lot of players associated with steroids, guys who've been suspended, guys who were named in the Mitchell report, who didn't have these great performances. The idea that steroids are a magic pill, I think, is greatly overstated. So I think the idea that a player took steroids and therefore you wipe out 500
You don't think it helps them mentally?
I do not.
You don't think it helps you physically?
If you look at the broad spectrum of players that we know have taken, they've tested positive. It's been a lot of relief pitchers. It's been a lot of marginal players. There's no case to be made that steroids magically make you a great player. And we've done this. We've made this argument that, oh, steroids make you a home run hitter. Because the face of steroids has been these guys like Bonds
But whatever
and McGuire.
you are, guys who say they've been on it say they just get stronger.
Guys also say those necklaces
way
make you a better player.
Yeah,
baseball players aren't good at evaluating what makes you better.
Medically, hormones aren't going to make you stronger. Male hormones aren't going to make you more male.
I don't think there's a person on this panel who's actually qualified to answer those questions. And the people who are qualified to answer it, the scientists, the doctors who've looked at it,
scientists aren't going to be voting on the Hall of Fame ballot. Jay, go ahead, Jay. We're not letting you speak.
Well, for me, I think you have to look at, divide into two separate periods. You've got the kind of the pre-regulation period when steroids was the Wild West. Anybody was taking what they wanted. There were no sanctions involved. And then you've got
you knew it was cheating. The players had to know it was cheating. This was not the loosey-goosey era that A-Rod described.
But there were no consequences for it, and nobody had any reason to think that they were going to get strung up for doing it.
It was a corrupt system.
We're just saying not in the Hall of Fame.
It was an institutional
Nobody's going to prison here, but it was clearly wrong. Nobody, Mark McGuire or anybody else, and I like Mark McGuire personally, but they weren't going to come out and admit they took steroids. Just as Brian said, because everybody knew it was wrong, even if it wasn't against the rules. It was wrong.
Let me ask you, because you've been voting for some time and you've actually had the opportunity to vote on players from different eras. What is the difference between not withholding your vote for players who've been associated with steroids and not withholding your vote for players who played in what we'll call the amphetamines era?
Well, I do think steroids really changes your physiology. Some guys just became behemoths, and guys hit 70 home runs when they're 35 years old.
That narrows it to two.
That's not going to happen. Well, we're just talking about a select group here who are eligible and on the ballot for the Hall of Fame. The majority of players aren't on the ballot for the Hall of Fame. And a lot of these players have been associated with steroids. There was a time where amphetamines was prevalent, and a lot of guys took amphetamines, but I don't know that it changed their physiology or caused anyone to hit 70 home runs. And I'm not going to be able to ferret out who took the amphetamines, who didn't take the amphetamines, when they took them. Here with steroids, we know guys were called before Congress. Some guys failed tests. Now, there are suspicions for other guys, but like I said, if I just have a suspicion, I have a hard time saying, well, I'm not going to put him in. But I do think if he's been proven to take steroids, it's going to be difficult to put him in particularly if he just went over the top based on the steroids, in my opinion.
Look, we could go on and on about this. It's a fascinating topic, and it's not easy.
No.
Either way you look at it, I would say, though, that you knew it was not okay during that time. You had to, otherwise guys would have come out and say, I use hormones, they're great. And it was not being done. And Joe, you'll get another word, don't worry. Coming up, we're gonna talk to the Hall of Fame president, Jeff Idelson. We bring the baseball brain power on this show, and we're back with our super panel, Jon Heyman, Joe Sheehan, and Jay Jaffe. John, as the official knight of the keyboard, as Ted Williams used to describe you fellas, has the official Hall of Fame vote with the Baseball Writers Association. Let's take a look at your ballot right now. And John, we've been talking about you have votes now for Tim Raines and Jack Morris. You also go for the peak guys, Don Mattingly and Dale Murphy. Why Don Mattingly? Start there.
Well, I like greatness, and he was great for a short period of time. In fact, he was Sporting News Player of the Year 3 years running, and you could make a case he was one of the best players in the game for 5 years. So he had greatness there, and he was also a great first baseman. If not the greatest first baseman of all time, maybe second to Keith Hernandez. So he was a great defender, great for a short period. I like him.
Allow me to speak for Joe Sheehan while he sits right here. We love Bernie. We love Bernie Williams. We love Don Mattingly. We go for these guys. Don Mattingly is a 4-year peak. It really was a 4-year peak. Joe, is that enough?
It was a 3-short peak and a 6-year extended peak through 89 until the back got him. It's not enough, especially when you consider the standard for first baseman.
All right, Dale Murphy then. What you vote for Dale Murphy is a 6-year peak enough?
I think so. He averaged 36 home runs over 5 years and over 100 RBIs over those 5 years. Also had that good 6th year. I think he represented an era. I think his numbers would have been good enough, except he played at the end. He wasn't very good, and his percentages went down. He would have had a 500 slugging percentage if he hadn't played those last couple years, and I think that probably hurt him more than it should have. 2-time MVP. To me, I think he belongs.
All right, Bernie Williams. I'm big on Bernie Williams, a 300, 400, 500 guy. Last 400, 500 guy for a full decade playing center field was Mickey Mantle. You vote yes on Bernie Williams, Joe.
I do, and I understand that because of career length, the way his career ended, defensive value, he loses some value. He doesn't really get there on the Jaws type metrics. But I also look at that 120 games of postseason play in an era where we value the postseason more than we have at any time in baseball history. He played very well in the postseason, center field for 4 world champions. That puts him over the line for me. I think we're going to have to consider the postseason going forward for some of these guys like Schilling and Smoltz who might not get there on regular season work.
How close are we on Bernie Williams, guys?
I don't think he's close enough that you can just say the postseason is enough to get him over. And I think he's probably got more value in the postseason than just about any player of the period. It's still not enough for me because he stopped being a productive player at 33.
I'm closer than he is. I think that postseason is terrific. I really love Bernie Williams. I think he was a great player. Not quite great enough in my mind yet. I'll reserve judgment and consider for another 14 years, but I think he just misses. The career totals just aren't quite enough.
We have one vote on Lee Smith. 10 seconds, Jay. Why Lee Smith?
Better career value than Goose Gossage, a little bit below peak, but still better than Fingers and everybody but Eckersley.
All right, great stuff, guys. Joe Sheehan, Jon Heyman, Jay Jaffe. Hey, we're going to join us. We have the best of Clubhouse Confidential all weekend long, much more on the Hall of Fame. And Monday, we'll see you here for the Hall of Fame exclusive announcement right here, 2 p.m. Eastern on MLB Network. Thanks for watching Clubhouse Confidential, everybody.